Reading the map as a system. What you are looking at is not just a political map or a city map, it is a transport and terrain map of southern British Columbia, where geography actively dictates human movement. The first thing to notice is the color logic. Orange and red lines represent major highways and arterial roads. Blue lines and shapes represent rivers, lakes, and coastal waters. Green areas indicate forested or mountainous terrain, largely less accessible. White and light areas signal valleys, basins, and corridors where people actually live and move. This map tells a single underlying story. Where movement is easy, cities exist. Where movement is hard, nature dominates. The coastal anchor, Vancouver and the lower mainland. Let's begin on the coast because everything radiates from here. Vancouver sits at the edge of the Pacific, pressed tightly between ocean and mountains. Notice how dense the road network is here compared to anywhere else on the map? This is not accidental. This region, often called the Lower Mainland, is one of the few large, flat, and navigable areas in the province. Highways here are short, tightly packed, and multi-directional. They feed suburban expansion rather than long-distance travel. Roads braid together rather than stretch out. This is classic metropolitan road geometry. Now look south and west into the water. You see fractured coastlines, islands, and channels. This is not open ocean. It is a protected inland sea, which historically made Vancouver viable as a port city. Maritime access compensates for the lack of inland mobility caused by mountains. From Vancouver, only a handful of routes can escape inland, and this limitation defines the entire map. The island counterweight, Victoria and Vancouver Island. Now shift your attention southwest to Vancouver Island, where Victoria sits. Notice something immediately? Despite being a capital city, Victoria is spatially isolated. There are no road connections to the mainland. Everything depends on ferries and air routes, neither of which appear prominently here. The roads on the island cluster tightly around Victoria and then thin out rapidly. This tells us that Vancouver Island is locally connected but regionally disconnected. Economically and politically important? Yes. Logistically central? No. This contrast between Vancouver and Victoria already introduces a theme you will see again. Importance does not always align with connectivity. The Fraser Corridor, river as infrastructure. Now follow the thick blue line flowing east from Vancouver. This is the Fraser River, and it is arguably the most important geographic feature on this map. Every major inland road leaving Vancouver either follows the Fraser River directly or runs parallel to it. Rivers here are not obstacles, they are navigation guides. As the Fraser cuts through the mountains, it creates one of the only low-resistant paths inland. Roads cling to this river valley because anywhere else would require extreme elevation changes. This is why settlements appear linear, not circular. Towns do not spread outward, they line up like beads on a string. The interior gateway, Hope and the narrow pass. The town of Hope is small, but on this map it is pivotal. Look at how many roads converge here. This is where the coastal world transitions into the interior. Past Hope, the terrain tightens, the corridors narrow, and choices disappear. From a mapping perspective, Hope represents choke point. Control this junction and you control access between coast and interior. Historically, economically, and logistically, this matters. Maps like this quietly show you why certain towns punch far above their population weight. Splitting the interior. Kamloops as a hub. Move northeast and you arrive at Kamloops. Kamloops sits at the confluence of routes, rivers, and valleys. Unlike Vancouver, which spreads outward, Kamloops collects movement. Roads arrive from multiple directions and then split again. This makes Kamloops a classic interior logistic hub. It is not coastal, not isolated, and not purely linear. It is a junction. Lakes as anchors, Kelowna and Okanagan. Now shift south to Kelowna and Okanagan Valley. Immediately the map changes texture. Instead of tight corridors, you see elongated lakes, most notably Okanagan Lake with the settlements strung along its edges. Kelowna's growth is not because of regional dominance, but because of geographic comfort. This is one of the few interior zones where living is easier rather than merely possible. Smaller nodes: Vernon, Penticton, and Merritt. Zoom out slightly and notice the smaller cities. Vernon and Penticton sit as lake ends, acting as terminus towns. They cap movement rather than redirect it. Merritt, by contrast, is another road junction, though smaller than Kamloops. It exists primarily because roads cross there, not because the land invites settlement. The southern edge: borders and constraint. At the bottom of the map, the faint USA label appears. Notice how few roads actually cross the border here. Despite geographic proximity, political boundaries sharply restrict movement. This is a reminder that maps are layered realities. Physical geography invites routes, but governance permits them. What this map really shows. At first glance, this looks like a simple regional map, but after spending time with it, the deeper message becomes clear. British Columbia is not organized around cities, it is organized around corridors. If you remove the labels and only keep roads and water, you could still predict where cities would be. That is the mark of a geography driven region. This map is not just showing where things are, it is showing why they are there. If you like a map just like this to be for your personal and business needs, reach out to mapsandlocations.com and we'll help you craft the perfect map as per your desires and needs. Thank you for watching. Look out for the next one.